So this house was designed by me for my family. I started to draw this already when we were engaged. And it was our dream to build it shortly after we had gotten married. So I'm Miko Delos Reyes. I'm an architect and I designed this house. The design was really inspired by what we envisioned our family life to be. It was also inspired by my favorite architect, Geoffrey Bawa, who is from Sri Lanka. During our honeymoon, we visited Sri Lanka, so I was able to experience firsthand the architecture. We stayed in hotels and homes that he designed. While it's not a literal interpretation of what he does, I took elements from his designs and reinterpreted it into something we thought would work for us. He wasn't afraid of using very raw materials. Here in our country, we tend to prefer very fine materials, polished sometimes even, or very premium. And I noticed in his architecture, it was very stripped down. The design was more about the space, the functionality of how the spaces are arranged, how the structure sat on the landscape, and the materials were very basic. It was always just wood and concrete. The house, I'd say, is a little more eclectic than my favorite architect's style in a way that there's probably a little bit more European influence injected. Up to today, I don't think I can exactly pinpoint the style referenced for how we designed the house. The garden was again inspired by a European garden. I'd say somewhat like a cross between an English garden with some elements of how the French also decorate their landscapes, but at a very, very, very small scale. I think one of my favorite features of the home might be the skylight, and it was really an experiment. A lot of people ask me, does it get warm? It does. It does get warm, but for me there are ways to address the heat with the proper ventilation, and the benefits of allowing the light to enter outweigh the cons of the heat that it brings in my opinion. I think the natural light just gives a different quality to the space. Natural light, even on cloudy days, just has a different quality to artificial lighting. And like I mentioned to you also, we don't turn on any lights during the day at any point in time. Well, it was a daunting endeavor for me at first because while I dabble with interiors, I really focus on architecture. So I'd say in a way it's more the macro of the planning of a house for my clients usually. But for my home, I wanted to be in charge of everything. So this was the first time that I experimented and really attempted different things. For me, I take it as a compliment that people said it looked lived in. For me, that's a good thing because for me, I'd interpret that as the home has a soul already. My principles in design and my standards are based more on space planning and how the house is supposed to function more than just how the house looks. And so I'd say my trademarks are more to do with my space planning, the adjacencies of spaces, and some of the important things for me in a home are, of course, taking special notice of light and ventilation always. I mean, even if we know that air conditioners will be used, I still think that a house has to function on the most basic level, and for me that is light and ventilation. I like to design what we like to call the modern day heritage home, which basically means a house that is relevant for the family today, but heritage in the sense that it becomes relevant for the years to come. And it can continue changing over the years as the family grows. We have several pieces that I used as anchors before I built more of the details around them. So one of them would be our dining table. That single piece of wood was something I had acquired many years ago. And so when I drew the dining room, I made sure that the size of the dining room was ideal for that exact size of wood. The support, the legs of that solid wood dining table are the extra rebar that was also part of the house. So I just fashioned that out of the additional materials we had. This coffee table was the actual wire spool of the wires that were used in this house. So after we had installed all the wires, instead of discarding it, I put a glass on top, cleaned it up a little bit, and now it's our coffee table. And there's a story. It has history with the house. Well, the very special piece is that bench over there, which was the bench that we sat on for our wedding. Before our wedding, I had that designed and fabricated, and when the house was finished, I found a special place for it also. There are pieces around that belong to my grandmother. Her portrait is the one hanging here. I was also very close to her. And so we like to think that, she might have liked this home. She was never able to see it anymore.
For more insightful videos on design, subscribe to Design Will Save the World.